You're listening to the Perth Property Show, Australia's only weekly property podcast by West Australian experts for West Australian listeners. Catch your latest episode every Monday at 7 a.m.
Good morning, guys. Welcome to another episode of the Perth Property Show. My name's Trent. We've got a real gun in the room today. I can't wait to start. Today's topic is one that's close to my heart, something that I think we need a lot of reform in this state, and that's finding a good real estate agent. What makes a good real estate agent? And to help us with that conversation is Jon Marlow from Exceed Real Estate. Jonathan, thanks for coming in.
Thanks for having me.
Johnny, let's get this kicked off straight away. I want to talk about, I think, what is the most fundamentally important character trait, and that's integrity.
Integrity and courage are the two character traits, I think, that go hand in hand. And those character traits are absolutely crucial in selecting an agent.
How do you determine that?
Truthfully, I think for a lot of owners, they're getting appraisals done and they're looking for the highest appraisal, the person that tells them what they want to hear. Now, the reality is that's the least qualified person. It's probably the person that has the least amount of integrity and the least amount of courage. And that sounds a bit strange, doesn't it? Because you think, well, hang on, no, I want more for my home.
Yeah.
However, what we find is that the person that seeks out what the seller wants to hear and then tells them what they want to hear is typically the person that would also fail the acid test when in front of a buyer and the buyer wants to offer low.
It takes a lot of courage to understand that you are competing with other real estate agents in the area. Most people would speak to 2 or 3 real estate agents before picking one. And understanding that you might be going in with a price that may be lower than the pitch from the guy yesterday, but the price that you believe you can honestly sell for, not based on just your skills, but the market.
Yeah, well, that's right. I mean, the evidence has to prove up the price. And I think the person, typically who tells people what they want to hear, if they're a pleaser by nature, they're ill-equipped to be a negotiator.
Yeah, because buying and selling real estate is a combative industry. At the end of the day, there, as much as we all want to be winners, there are often winners and losers, and that can come down to the skill of the agent.
Totally, yeah. So at that point of negotiation, you've got a buyer that wants to offer low and wants to get away with offering as little as they can put forward. Now, if the person is a pleaser by nature, they're going to take that offer and then they're going to try and convince the seller to accept it.
At the end of the day, as much as we do need to be setting expectations with the seller that are realistic, your goal as a sales agent, which is why you're paid commission, is to get the best and the most realistic price.
Yeah, that's right. And I think, look, the reality is, I often refer to it in this way: the asking price or the advertised price, its only relationship to the property's value is how much demand it creates, right? Demand has a relationship with value. Now, if we're creating low demand because we've given an inflated asking price, then low demand is going to create a low sale price. So we must always be focusing on, and I always encourage people when they're looking for an agent, is don't make the appraisal price the most important part of your focus. Make the sale price the most important part of your focus. Because the appraisal price is nothing to do with what it's worth.
It might be below, it might be above what you end up with.
So what you really need is a person that's got the right strategy and understands what they're doing, right? Can demonstrate that understanding to you.
From history or from
from actually being able to just content in their communication with you, right?
Understand
how they express different concepts. Around how real estate is valued, around how real estate is sold.
In the area, specifically, not just as a concept itself, but pertinent to the street, the type of house, the suburb, the demographic of the people.
Totally. But that's a research-driven thing. And see, a lot of people get caught up in, they'll go with the local agent, for example. Right? And nowadays, the local agent, their only qualification quite often is being local. You need someone that actually understands how to do the research properly to be able to arrive at a right price. And I see more and more with salespeople today that real estate sales is going to be very much driven by how well the person can research. So that's going to be a skill that needs to be demonstrated in the future. Up until now, and in the last probably 25 years that I've been in this business, a lot of people have got by on telling people what they want to hear and not doing any research at all. And that's not the way to go for the future.
In terms of an owner doing their research into a real estate agent, what would be the most important metric for proving up the abilities of the real estate agent that you're about to meet?
Testimonials. is crucial. The fact that they're willing to let you speak to those people, I think, is a real crucial element. I think listing to sale ratio.
Explain that.
Someone who's got 45 signs up in your area.
That may look like they're doing really well.
Yeah, it looks like they're doing fantastic, but in fact, they're only selling at any one time 2 or 3 of those because their whole focus is telling everyone what they want to hear. And the reality is everyone will list with someone who tells them what they want to hear unless they've had someone good come in and educate them why that's not correct.
So they're really good at marketing themselves and their brand, but if you've got 45 properties on the market that you're listing, that's great. It shows that you're really good at marketing yourself. But if you're only selling 2 or 3 of them at a time, you maybe haven't set up the processes or you don't have the skills to actually market the property you're trying to sell yourself.
Correct. Really, you're failing in the integrity test in the beginning and you're failing in the courage test in the beginning because it does take a lot of courage to tell an owner something that is truthful, honest, but is not necessarily what they want to hear.
So you'd be valuing a real estate agent who only takes on 10 properties at a time rather than 45 because they can focus their time to convert those listings to sales much more efficiently.
Yeah, look, I think there's some argument for that. I don't think it's a one-size-fits-all, though, because you can have an agent, for instance, that does have a lot of volume but has a very good team surrounding them. And they produce good results on the back of that. So there's this person at the top who has all the skills, who manages the processes and manages the team effectively. Now, that can still be a very good outcome. The challenge, though, is to be able to identify whether that person has the right listing to sale ratio. So again, it comes back to that in my belief. Whether or not the person's carrying 45 listings and doing it really well, or whether they're carrying 10 listings and doing it really well, the measure of the how well they're doing should be on listing to sale ratio. Are they selling most of what they're listing?
The agent finder page on Realtor.
Yeah, look, absolutely. That'll tell you how many sales they've made in the last 12 months,
and
which
the
can
listings.
be useful.
Yep.
But I think it shows the volume of listings. So that's one way. Then the other thing is you can just follow it on realestate.com, domain.com, and look at what they're listing and look at, typically, if you're selling your home, there's a bit of consideration going up before you decide to sell. So watch it over a 3-4 week window of time, right? And if there's someone that comes in, for instance, who's highly skilled in the area, but may not necessarily have been from that area originally, but comes in because they're highly skilled, they've come in on a referral basis, and they put a property on and they sell it, that person could be equally as well qualified as someone who's in the area, who's got 10 listings, and they're not necessarily selling them as efficiently.
I think a big factor these days, a big asset real estate agents have, is their database that they're actually selling to.
Yeah, look, I think the database can be very important. The only thing is I'm always very much a devil's advocate on this. Most of the people that are sitting on a database, for instance, let's say, Trent, you came to me and you said, I'm looking for development sites in these suburbs. And can you let me know if something comes up? Now, the reality is you're sitting on my database because you're also hoping to find something before it comes to market as a buyer because you want to buy it for as cheap as you possibly can.
Yeah, I want a deal.
Yeah, so you're not trying to pay as much as you possibly can for the property sitting on my database. So all of the buyers that are sitting on my database really are not necessarily going to pay top dollar. Number 2, you're not going to sit on my database exclusively. So you're sitting on my database, but if you're in buying mode at the time, so you're in purchasing mode.
You've contacted every agent.
You're also going to look at everything that's on the market and do your comparisons. And if something's just on my database, you're not going to purchase that without doing a comparison as well. So the reality is that database becomes then a little bit less of a crucial element. Don't get me wrong, I think it's good to be able to have those buyers there as well and manage communication with those and sufficient numbers of those. But it must be that the property is always taken to market to compete with everything else.
That's
or every other buyer. And every other, by the way, buyer's list.
That's a really good ideological point. Some agents will market the idea that you don't have to spend marketing money. I've got the database. We'll pick this up straight away. Yep. But really, if you're going to sell and you're looking to sell for the right price, a lot of people do argue that you have to go to market. Otherwise, you'll never know how much you could have got.
Yeah, that's right. And the reality is no one's sitting on their database because they want to pay top dollar.
And lastly, I think that, again, we need to touch on the willingness to have a tough conversation when maybe our expectations, the seller's expectations, are not aligned with the market.
Classic example is, we purchased an agency a while back. There was an agent that had kept hold of listings that were, 6 months, 8 months, 10 months. And these clients didn't know any better, just assumed that the market was terrible, et cetera, which, the market hasn't been great.
The market's bad, but it's not 10 months bad.
No, that's right. And they went on holidays, and we had one of our other agents in the office who was better trained, went in and got 4 of those properties sold in the space of 4 weeks, purely by having the hard conversation with those clients. The conversations, by the way, that those clients actually were grateful for and wanted to hear, because no one had actually turned around and said to them, I think it might be the price. And the reality is it's almost always the price.
Price is the number one factor.
Yeah, well, price is the number one factor.
You can always put new carpets in.
Price determines the level of demand. Now, if we're sitting there week after week with no one coming through the property, then demand is failing. And if we don't fix demand, we're not going to fix the sale price either.
And it's something that from the get-go, especially with this new age of researching properties, is not in the paper every week on the same place. It's on realestate.com and REWA, and they use the same sort of algorithms that Google has, that very quickly, if that thing's not being clicked on, it's fallen to the back of the page and no one's looking at it.
Yep. Correct. And it's drifting out into nowhere. The problem is that as a new property comes on, it gets pushed down the list as well. So if you're not getting seen, getting clicked on, like you said, or alternately, you're just not promoted high enough up that list, then you're not going to be seen.
Does a good real estate agent spend more on marketing than a bad real estate agent?
I think a good real estate agent will ask you to spend more on marketing, absolutely. So not much.
But they know what they're doing with it.
Yeah, I was going to say, and this is the thing, this is the myth. There's agents that spend masses of money on themselves and will carry masses of listings, but not necessarily be good agents, right? But they'll look like they're good agents and they'll do numbers, right?
Enough to sustain.
But those ratios will not be good. But they don't really care because they're doing enough volume and they're making a great living, right? What you need is someone that will come in and say to you, okay, look, I think we need to spend this and this is why we need to spend it, and show you where on realestate.com it will appear, where on domain.com it will appear, and what other processes they're going to put in place, for instance, through Facebook and LinkedIn, that are going to get your property promoted and in front of the right audience.
John, thanks a lot for your time.
You're welcome.
Hopefully we'll have you in again.
Thank you.
Okay, we are going to chat about one of my favourite suburbs today with our suburb spotlight, and it is Riverton. We haven't spent a lot of time in this area. We've spoken about Rossmoyne before, but Riverton really does stand out for me as one of my favourites because it's got a lot going for it. Obviously the river, but also shops on High Road, and its catchment zone of one of Perth's best schools being Rossmoyne. We've got one person who can help us out with this conversation. It's Riverton's #1 agent. It's Michael Minic. Thanks for coming in, mate.
Thanks for having me, Trent. Really appreciate it. Thank you.
Tell me about Riverton. Tell me some history. I know that you've got some awesome stuff for us today as to how far this goes back and the personalities behind this suburb's creation.
Yeah, definitely. So a lot of history in this particular area, very small, niche riverside suburb. It's actually began in 1917.
That's old. I wouldn't have expected that.
Yeah, so almost Federation days to a certain extent, but obviously as time went on, subdivisions occurred, and it was actually named after the Riverton Bridge. Not many people cross over and actually realise how old that landmark is, but it's definitely a big centre point for this suburb.
Tell me about some of the older land holdings and the old land owners that first subdivisions, which were just huge, farming plots back in the day.
Exactly right. So there used to be a lot of farming back in the times, and even after all these days, I have sold properties who are named after famous streets in that area. So it's definitely an honour.
Riley Street, right?
Yep.
Riley Street?
Yeah, Riley Road.
Riley Road, sorry.
Just one example. Marjorie Avenue, some of these guys who actually been living there for a very, very long period of time.
And it's only recently that the last blocks in the last decade or so that have been sold off.
As life goes on, times change, and it's something to always remember.
I just like the idea of being able to hark back and look back at the inception of suburbs, and you can still recognise where these estates have been developed, and you really can see where that founding family held that plot of land. Based around the way that a major road has been. So I always like to hear that story of that Riley family on Riley Road who owned all the land pretty much from the bridge all the way up to High Road. It's cool to think about those days.
Yeah, definitely want to always remember, but many stories I have heard. And
tell me about the things that are going for Riverton. Tell me about the demographic of people, why people buy into Riverton itself.
Yeah, good question there, Trent. Predominantly, a lot of the marketplace and buyers predominantly buy in Riverton, just mainly for the Rossmoyne High School zone. As you're aware, Rossmoyne was labelled the best high school in WA just last week. Yeah. And obviously being a Rossmoyne boy, being a Riverton kid as well, my parents even bought into this suburb just to get
you into school.
Yep, exactly right. Sabrina and myself into this lovely suburb, and after 5 years of doing what they have to do for the kids, they move out from the area, serve the purpose.
Oh, wow. Okay. So you see it as really a stage in families' lives, being in Riverton?
Yeah, definitely. It's all about the education. We all value that. And like I said, it's one of the biggest drawing cards buying in that particular suburb.
A lot of new, expensive two-story houses popping up in this area as well.
Yeah, definitely. At the moment, Trent is going through a very heavy transition. Every single corner, wherever you drive, you'll see a home demolished. You see land sold off. You see a brand new double-story home or even a single-story home just pop up.
So people probably a bit nervous about how Perth's market has been, but I think this is a fantastic example of there is still a lot of money in Perth and people are still willing to spend a lot of money in Perth. There just has to be a good fundamental reason for it. And clearly we've got with Rossmoyne and the river and the amenities from the local shops. Fantastic example of why people will be happy to spend $1 million plus in a suburb, which is still very much a middle demographic suburb.
These guys actually buy in the area, not based on the market, but basing the transaction on their lives. So that's the difference. So again, revolving around the Rossmoyne High School Zone precinct there, but no better time to build than where we are now.
I think an interesting point to note as well from that catchment zone effect being the major effect of this suburb is it's a very high owner-occupied suburb.
Exactly.
Not a lot of investors going on here because most people that buy here, they're buying here to live here.
Exactly right, Trent. So you tend to attract a lot of the audience coming from surrounding areas into Riverton. And again, Rossmoyne High School Zone. But not only that, it's also situated on the Canning River there. Interesting
to know a lot of the ethnicities that are coming in here as well. A lot of impact from the Chinese, Sri Lankan, Indian market. A lot of money obviously coming in from those areas too. Right. I guess when you're comparing it to Rossmoyne and Shelley, which are also in the catchment zone, Riverton's a bit more affordable? Yeah, good question there. It's very multicultural in these particular areas of Perth. It represents excellent value compared to the Rossmoyne, the Shelleys, even the Willetton, another hot suburb, probably according to REWA, one of the hottest suburbs going around in the metro area. Yeah. But going back to Riverton, it's drawing that type of marketplace internationally. If you're really coming from an international background, you're there just for the school. Exactly. It makes sense to probably look for the most affordable of the 3-4 suburbs that are in that catchment zone. Sure, definitely, yeah. So represent good value, and Riverton always traditionally have been a high demand area over the last couple of years. And really protected from the downturn we've had in the last few years, because this is just a totally different effect. Yeah, definitely. We just had one in Riverton just recently. We sold just under 900,000, been on the market for just over a month, which is really good. And this is a big ticket items, well above the medium house price brackets in the area. Yeah, okay. Let's talk about price. Just segued into it for me. How cheap can I buy in Riverton? In Riverton, probably the cheapest you can buy, no lower than 300, 350, and that would have to be a 2x1, needing a lot of work type unit, duplex half. A really old option. Really, really old option there. All right, step up for us, the next option. Yeah, so the next option would be up to the $400,000 price bracket, perhaps like a 3x1 villa. Okay, and again, an older sort of development. Exactly. Yep, 20, 30 years old. Exactly right. Like that. Yep. Yeah. Next level, you'll probably be getting around about the 450, 500, there'll be 3x2s. Okay, your newer development option? Not so much, but probably late 80s. Yeah, well, there you go. 3x1s, 3x2s. Again, depending on which part of Riverton, as you get closer to the waterfront there, prices are more steeper. How much am I paying for a family home? Family home in terms of single story? Yeah, single story. Single stories, brand new one recently sold for about high sixes, 680. Affordable. And then I guess the sky's the limit when it gets to these new two-story places. So once you crack into that $750,000, you probably could pick up a double-story home in the area. Yep. And how high can it get? On a very good market, I had one late last year. We sold a 3-level home on the actual river, sold for just under 1.1 million to buyers from Hong Kong. Well, look, I still see that as an affordable option. When you compare that to the lofty heights of Rossmoyne and Shelley, which are just down the road, they have the same fundamental reasons to buy, really. You've got river, you've got school. Same thing. Riverton's still pretty affordable when you compare it to those areas. Exactly right. So that's why it all comes down to the bottom dollar, and per people only buying if they see value. Simple as that. I guess there's not too many development options for us as developers, Michael. If I'm looking around Riverton, and to be honest, I don't look too much because I don't see many development options, would I come into much luck if I'm checking out realestate.com today? They do come up, but you just got to be moving on them really, really quick. They tend to sell one. I noticed just driving by just late last week, was on the market for about 2 weeks,
corner lot, potential 3-unit site sold in a matter of weeks.
Yeah. So I guess that's the real theme we're talking about today, is that whenever new supply comes on the market, whether it's from development or just a demolition, it's gone straight away.
Exactly right. I got one popping up this weekend, and I don't expect that to be on the market anytime soon.
I guess those are the easier, more sought after listings for you, aren't they?
Yeah, definitely. They're in demand. Every agent's dream. Like I said, once you get these, especially they've been living there for 50 years or so, something that we got to handle with care.
That's a really good point, is that there generally will always be a story to these houses.
Sure.
They're homes.
Yes.
Very rarely are they investments, and you've got people who are moving out of these areas after a long time and moving in for the plan of having a good few years of enjoying the lifestyle.
Yeah, exactly. At the end of the day, everyone buys for lifestyle reasons, mainly in Riverton. But like I said, it's definitely rare like hen's teeth, these type developments going around.
All right, final question. It's the median house price question, Michael Minic.
Median house price brackets for this one in Riverton is just under $650.
Okay, this is going to be tough for you, I think. What will you buy with $650,000 in Riverton?
You're probably going to be short of $100,000. I definitely would consider getting a development site. Like I said, development sites are going for about $750,000, $780,000 in the area.
It's a very hard one, I think. This one.
Yeah, that's a tricky one. But for $650,000, you could get a decent 4x2. But every person's got a different requirement when purchasing.
At the end of the day, I think if you can get a 4x2 in Ross Moyne's catchment with the amenities of Riverton, you're still probably pretty happy.
I'll be very happy. And just for Trent, where it's actually situated, I feel that you get value for money. You basically near Stockland Shopping Centre. You obviously got little cafes, restaurants all throughout the area. Low key is a big selling point there. Obviously, just over the Riverton Bridge in Wilson there.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Is that not only do you have Ross Moyne as that catchment zone, it's not that far from Curtin either. So whilst there may be people that are sticking around just for high school, the kids head over to Curtin across the river. They'd probably stick around Riverton as well, wouldn't they?
Yeah, exactly right. So it's very centrally located. It has some of the best bus routes going on in that corridor of Perth. You get the circular route that goes around through that area. And again, Curtin University is the mecca for everything in the Canning Council.
Michael Minic, thank you very much for chatting. One of my favourite suburbs, Riverton. We'll have you in again soon.
Thank you so much, Trent. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Perth Property Show. If you've only just joined the conversation, you can catch up by heading over to our website, perthpropertyshow.com.au, subscribing to the podcast, or joining our Facebook page. Don't forget to tune in next Monday at 7 a.m. for more expert insights, local analysis, and suburb spotlights. Happy hunting!